Hi, I'm Tracy Fletcher-King. I want to tell you a little bit about what I use first. I just used a standard pencil, some fine line masking fluid, and this is my palette setup. I used a size 4 and a size 0 brush, some white watercolour paint, and a couple of pens, a micron and a uni ball, some black ink, and finally a dip pen. So as long as you have something along those lines, you can certainly do this as well. A few people also ask me about how I go about, do I mix the colours first or not? And I do usually mix a bit of a puddle. Look, I'm a little bit haphazard with this sort of thing, but I try to capture a couple of colours, especially in something like this. It was a little bit bigger, and even though it looks really dark there, it's a brown plastic. There's quite a bit of gold in it when the colour hits it. So I just made sure I had a couple of bits of colour mixed up. Now I'm really lucky, it was stupidly humid that day, which means that those paints were going to stay liquid for quite a while, so I didn't have to make as big a puddle. But that's pretty much all I did to start. So what I've got is I've got it drawn up in pencil, and then those main white parts I actually went over with the masking fluid, and that just preserves them, because quite honestly I'm kind of crap at leaving whites, and I find that it really it sort of restricts me. So by putting them down and knowing that I've preserved at least some of them, it makes it a lot easier. So I went around the main words, thank you, which is the brand, and the hand wash, just to sort of make sure I got it all in the right spot, and then I put down the masking fluid. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just putting in the green for the label. Now I'm extending it beyond because I like it to be a little bit more expressive, and I think it gives it a little bit more energy. I hate when watercolors, or any paintings really, are really flat, and you know, to me that's not as interesting as something that's pushed a bit further. Like, it's still recognizable as the object, it still looks like the product, but it also feels a little bit more dynamic to me. So I kind of like that. I like the energy. So I just put that green down. Now I'm underpainting the lid. I actually drew the lid. I drew the lid when it was still all pushed together, but then of course we needed the soap. So by the time I'm drawing it, it's all squashed up and I'm too uncoordinated to push it back down again. I end up with soap everywhere. So hence the drawing and the actual object aren't quite the same, but what is the same is the colour. So I underpaint with Payne's Grey. I love Payne's Grey. It's the best colour for underpainting with blacks. It stops them being too flat. And now I'm laying in the base colour just for that, the plastic. Alright, and as I said, even though it's brown, there's quite a bit of gold in it, and like a really orangey colour. So I'm just trying to block that in and just get a bit of a sense of some underpainting. So when I lay the colours over the top, there'll be a little bit of the underpainting show through, and it will create a bit of a glow. What's great about watercolours is the glow you can get. It's the fact that the colours layering on top of each other sort of create, you know, a depth that you don't get in other mediums. Now here I did make a little bit of a blue on the other side. I sort of went a little bit heavy on the bottom of one side, so then I had to even it up, and you know, that can be a very slippery slope, but it's a little bit flatter than I would like. But at this stage I just figured I'd try and fix it later on. But you can see I'm laying down more orange, trying to leave a few highlighty areas, and there is also some masking fluid in those areas as well. But I'm just trying to sort of capture a bit of shape, and at this stage it's just that first layer. Now the label is a black. It's not a black, but it is fairly black, sort of a matte black. So I'm just again underpainting with Payne's Grey so that it doesn't end up being a flat black. I seem to be saying lots of rhyming words there, but basically what I'm doing is I'm just sort of blocking everything in at this stage. I just want it to sort of get blocked in, and then I'm going to put it under the fan and get it to dry out really well. So I've got a little desk fan that I just pop down that's attached to the computer. Make sure you weigh it down, because otherwise the thing flies away, and give it a chance to dry. So it's really dry at this stage, and I decided to go back and try and add a bit more definition into the green. The colours dried pretty well, and I tend to use watercolour in quite a dense way. Like, I don't water it down too much. I don't like really wishy-washy sort of washes. I like strong pigment. But they were a touch flat, so I actually overlaid it with a little bit of yellow and then added some more green back in, especially for the bits coming out of the side of the bottle, because they were looking a little bit flat. And then I'm just going to let them dry off and get working more on putting some darker brown. Now, because you've got the colour underneath, you don't need to be as strong with the pigment, because you want some of that colour to show through, but I still work in a fairly deep way. I do put another layer on yet, so I don't go as hard as I can, because I like to build it up. You know, you've got to think tonally, and you want to build it up. That's me trying to fix it and just making it worse there. Did you see that? But anyway, you know, I do work fairly quickly as well. So by working quickly, you sort of sometimes make those blues like I did there, but overall, you know, it's fine. I've realized my mistake trying to make it a little bit more okay. It didn't entirely come off, but at the end of the day, it didn't really show up too much in the end product. And this is something for me. It's not for a job or anything like that. It's just, I love the bottle. I love this product. The smell of it is unbelievable. It's lime and coriander. If you could smell it, you'd understand totally why I was painting it. But now I'm starting to build up more colour. So I like that underpainting, and now I'm building it up, but trying to do it sort of slowly in layers rather than just whacking it on straight to dark, because once it goes on really dark, you can't pull it back. So making sure I'm working from light to dark, leaving some of those lighter areas to show through. And it really is different. If I had have just painted that dark brown straight up and had none of the underpainting, it looks totally different. If you give that a try yourself, you won't believe the difference that underpainting makes. And so now I'm doing the black of the top. Again, doing the same thing, sort of building it up, not going straight to a dark black, but giving my eye a chance to sort of decide where it needs to be a bit darker, where it needs to be a bit lighter, and sort of creating that depth that I want, and giving myself a chance to leave some areas as well. And you can see shapes starting to emerge a little bit, you know, and it's starting to look more like the object. Another thing you've got to watch a little bit is when you've used masking fluid, it can be, sometimes the paint can pool in around the little bits of masking fluid, so you've got to be quite firm with the paint and firm with the paintbrush and make sure you're getting it all in around there, but it's not pooling too much. And here I've really wet it, and I'm just giving the paints a chance to run and meld together and sort of create a little bit of interest, you know, and picking up a bit more blue just to sort of enliven it. It's not the exact colour of the packaging, but I kind of wanted it to be a little bit more dynamic on the page. I was worried at this stage that the black and the brown were looking a little bit flat, so I just wanted to pick it up. And now I'm just sort of adding in a few more details just to sort of make sure that it's got that rounded appearance, and it looks solid, but at the same time it doesn't look as though it's completely opaque. I still want a little bit of translucence there. And then I remove this is after I removed all of the masking fluid. And when I did that, I found that it was a little bit too white at the bottom there, and it sort of drew attention to the fact that I'd fattened the bottom of the container. So I just went back with a bit of paint, knocked that back a little bit. And that's the great thing about leaving the whites, is you can knock them back, whereas it's harder to put the whites back in. You can do it, and I certainly do it with gouache and things like that, but it is great when you leave them to begin with. And now I'm just using the Uniball pen, and I'm just going in and tightening up some of the lines around the lettering where the masking fluid was, where, you know, it gets a little bit messy. So I'm just sort of tightening it up, making sure that it looks the way it should. You know, I'm not trying to get a perfect representation, but I love the product, I love the bottle, and I wanted to paint it. So using a white pen here, that will sink a little bit into your paint, but you know, I don't mind that too. It's not as glaringly white as it can be. But it's starting to come together now. You know, it's starting to look the way I would like it to look, rather than trying to actually write all that in. I don't really like that. I try to at least suggest it so that, again, it's recognisable. The pen was too big, so I swapped to a micron 0.005, which is incredibly fine, and it's a beautiful pen. The reason I don't use it a lot more and use microns a lot more is because I'm forever pushing them too hard and I destroy them. So now I'm just tightening up the top, using the black pen to create the really black blacks, and just to make sure there's a little bit of structure there, capturing a few textures with it and trying to work with what's underneath, but at the same time to define it as well. And I'm trying to add a bit of interest here. Like when I ink, I try to get a little bit expressive with it. I try not to get too caught up, because if you get caught up, then you get really tight and then it sort of loses all its vibrancy. So while some may say it's because I'm a bit haphazard by nature, I would say to you that it is with a plan. And then I moved on to ink and dip pen, which I love because it's a blacker black, and also I have even less control with it. So you see me trying to fix the bottom, and I'm trying to add a bit of energy back into it. I always feel as though they go through a really flat patch. I'm not very good at things that are sort of a bit bland, so I like to throw in a few extra lines and make sure they look like drawings. They should look like drawings and paintings. I'm not going for photorealism. I can't do photorealism. And while I admire it in other people, I kind of like what I do. You know, I like that it kind of looks like it, but not entirely. But I hope that's told you a little bit about what I do. I hope that you have a go and get in and do some things. As you can see, sometimes it's hard to leave it alone. I'm trying to fix where it's a little bit awkward in places. And even after I put a signature on it, sometimes I have to come back and fiddle with it. But I hope you've gotten a lot out of this and you've really enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.